episode of Bragging Rights, the first podcast purely dedicated to battle reports for Warhammer Fantasy battles. Today, I played against Alex Truslow. We played another 2K game. If you haven't listened to the pilot episode yet, you can listen to that and get a little more of an intro about what the show's about. So we've got a couple other people in today. We've got Wyatt and Dylan, and Wyatt plays 40K and watched his first game of Fantasy tonight, and tomorrow is going to play his first 3 games of Fantasy in the Fantasy Arden Boys.
And I'm going to qualify.
He'll probably do well.
And we'll qualify. We've got a nasty list. Dylan's a long-time player. He's been playing along as long as Alex and I.
I actually taught Dylan how to play.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
It's my protege.
So, Alex, why don't you talk about history of Warhammer a little bit?
All right. I started buying models in 5th edition. The first box I ever bought was the handgunners, Empire handgunners, which were terrible models.
One Piece?
No, the old guys, the metal dudes. Yeah. I started actually playing in 6th edition, and started playing about 10 years ago. So I have some experience, but never really gone to the tournament scene until I met Matt. Before I met Matt, I used to win tournaments in Maine. Now Matt wins the tournaments in Maine. But I've been getting best sport for like the last 4 tournaments in a row, so I'm pretty happy with that. And actually, in the last tournament, I actually won more money winning best sport than Matt did winning the tournament.
That was rigged. That's rigged.
Yeah, it was rigged. I actually paid people to get that. But I play Empire right now. I'm getting together an Empire army. I also have a Goblins and Vampire army I'm getting together, but I pretty much played almost every army other than Lizardmen at one point in my life. Pretty much a fluff player at heart, but I've been playing tournaments a lot recently. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Cool. Alright, so today we did another 2,000 point battle because of the recommendation that Jervis put out on his recent article on the GW website. I don't remember what it's called, but it just went over, I think it was called Steadfast, maybe? It was like a 3-part about the new edition. He said to play with mystery terrain, which I've done since then, and he said to play at 2,000 points, which I've also done. And I kind of feel like the game's more balanced at 2,400. I think he was off about saying that it's more balanced at 2,000, but it could be just, I've only played 3 games at 2,000. Maybe I'm wrong, but I felt like the games at 24, the lower tier armies were able to bring more stuff with them that helped them out, toys.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think 2,000 points, armies like armies like Demons and Lizardmen are a lot more powerful than Orcs and Goblins or Ogre Kingdoms.
At 2,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, at 2,000, it feels like Demons, Lizardmen, and maybe to a lesser extent the Elves are already bringing all their nasty stuff. And at 2,400, they're not bringing more nasty stuff, they're just making their units bigger. Whereas the lower tier armies that have cheaper options, like Orcs and Goblins or Empire, it seems to me like they can bring more of those nasty toys that they didn't have room for in 2,000 points. Because they had to make, their core units a certain size to be viable. Well, like I said, we were playing 2,000 points. I brought a slightly soft list, but certainly harder than the one I ran in the pilot. I was aiming for something that was designed a little more with 8th edition in mind, although we also had the restriction of wanting to have the entire army painted and have the entire army based coherently, so I was limited in my model selection a little bit from that. You notice here, this is my block of 30 horrors. I've got them led by Ice Gammon that I'll talk about a little bit later. The horrors, I actually used Nurgling models, and I converted 2 of them to be a standard musician with pieces out of War Games Factory Numidian kit. It's a great kit with a lot of good bits. And I just felt like the Nurglings were better for the Nurgle theme of the army, and I haven't decided which column yet. I think I'm going with Horrorlings. For my Hitty Close Combat units, I decided to take a 5-man unit of Nurglings, which would scout ahead and immediately go for the biggest unarmored threat, which in this case was going to be a giant, but it was basically to go after anything that's big with a high toughness. I brought a big unit of Bloodletters to just take on his toughest infantry, so I felt like with the Hatred and the Herald in there, they were going to do fine. Brought a unit of 30 Horrors for long-range support. And I feel like 30's a number where it's not going to get erased easily, and you're level 3 for the first 2 turns at least until you miscast. My basic strategy with these guys is just throw 6 dice at every spell. It's not that nuanced, but it seems to be working well for me so far, and just hope for that irresistible. I also brought Big Papa Poop. The only upgrade I had points for was Nurgling Infestation, because he starts out at 450, and you got to keep things at 500 points or less for Lords or Heroes. For a little bit of fast movement, I brought Fiend. Those 3 Nurgling bases that are brown that you can see are what Papa Poop lays out during the battle with the Infestation. Those I didn't actually pay for. That's just what comes out during the game. And I have 10 Plague Bearers, which I guess I only took them because I had the extra points. I originally had 10 extra horrors that I was taking the horror unit, but Alex's face didn't look so hot when I pulled those out and put them next to my Nurgling unit. So I put them away and pulled out the Plague Bearers instead. It's very much a gimme unit, but I thought that maybe they could hold up for a round or 2 in close combat against this stuff.
So for my army, I was actually, as you can see by the tray, I was borrowing Matt's Orcs and Goblins army, which is beautifully painted and it's a pleasure to play with. Every time I play with it, I have a lot of fun. As you can see, the center of the tray,
Keep going.
center of the tray, I'm running a black orc big boss on a wyvern with Ooglags, accurate axe, the boss hat, kicking boots, and enchanted shield. So this is my unit of Night Goblin archers with a level 2 Common Goblin Shaman that has a Dispel Scroll, and that unit has 1 Fanatic, and it's about, I think, 26 models, I forget.
Yeah, it's a 26 models for both the Goblin units.
Yeah, and you can also see there are 2 ball throwers with bullies, so those 80 points. And behind them is the 10 Forest Goblin Spider Riders with bows. And then we have a unit of big guns with shields, which actually I really wish I took 2 hand weapons instead of shields. I don't think the shields are worthwhile to take on them.
Yeah, they're modeled so that they can be played either way. Some of them have shields and some have 2 hand weapons. It's about 50-50, so that I could swap by just pulling guys into the front ranks.
Called being cheap.
Yeah, it's called being economical.
Yeah, so those are economical big guns. With in the front rank, we have a black orc boss with Battle Standard Bearer and the armor that makes opponents reroll wounds. I forget what it's called, and heavy armor and a shield. It's
It's called the Helm of Fortune, maybe.
Yeah, Helm of Fortune is a
Something
helm.
like that. It might be something else.
So he's pretty tough to kill, even though he was killed almost immediately upon contact with the enemy.
Oh, come on! Don't reveal the secrets of the game yet.
And then the guy immediately to his right, or his left, our right, is a common orc boss who had...
Oh, he's not common. He did well.
Yeah, did great. I was really proud to serve with him. Martog's sword, or whatever the hell that's called.
Martog's best batch.
Martog's best batch.
Oh yeah, that one.
With
Pretty good.
light
as far
armor
as
and shield.
patches go.
So I took 26 Night Goblins with spears, with full command, and netters, and 2 fanatics. And that's a pretty good unit. It has nets. It can pretty much take on almost any other infantry as long as they're not super elite. And they're good to just hold people up until the bigger hitters in the army can get there. I also brought a giant, which is, in my opinion, always good. I don't think Matt likes him as much, but
I don't rate them that high in this edition, but I love that model. His name's Kurt Ferguson. And he's been named that since the year 2001 when I bought it.
That was a good year.
this is a rock lobber that Matt converted.
I wouldn't say converted.
Well,
counts as.
Counts as. It's pretty cool. And yeah, so those are the 2 armies.
Yeah, so looking at our 2 armies, we both have pretty small armies. We both have a lot of points we put into characters, and we both have big nasties. He has 2 terror causers, although they're not going to do much against demons.
Yeah, it's like terror isn't really that big of a deal in this edition anyway.
Another thing, we've tried to design our list not knowing who we're going to play. Obviously, when we design our list for these battle reports, we know who we're going to play. We know roughly what sort of list they're going to play, but we still make a good effort to put together an all-comers list that we would bring to a tournament, because we want something that would comp well, and we want something that we want to play, and we want something that isn't over the top. For instance, we don't use any special characters, and we don't do double rare, stuff like that.
Yeah, the only time we ever use special characters is when the special character is so bad he actually takes away from your army. Like Luther Huss or something like that. And something else I want to note is that Matt actually painted both these armies, and the one on the left took him about 2 hours to complete.
I wouldn't say 2 hours. I purchased the army specifically to paint it up and sell it, and I ended up liking it so much I couldn't sell it. And it's a very simple concept that I completely screwed up. One of the first GTs I went to, or actually the first fantasy GT I went to, was a Colonial, and there the guy who got Player's Choice was Luke Weitzman, and he had a phenomenal looking Lizardman army that I had looked at over and over throughout the day, and he told me that he painted it by priming it white and then adding, I think he added bleach bone and then a bunch of different layers of wash, and used the different layers of wash to achieve different colors. And his ended up really subdued, really nice, and blended well together, and the whole army was just outstanding to look at from any distance. I tried to copy the same thing with my last two Demon armies. I feel like I had a little bit better success with this army. The Purple Legion is very vibrant, very bright, whereas I was going for more of a subdued look for it. Didn't work. This one, I think I was a little bit closer to it. I tried to use a lot more brownie colors.
I think that one looks good.
Obviously, there's a lot of green. I'm not a super talented painter, but I've learned how to use washes effectively.
Have you won like Player's Choice or like best? Like you scored really high on your paint scores, right? On one couple of tournaments.
I scored pretty
How'd you do
high.
at Boston Brawl?
Boston Brawl, I got 18 out of 20, but that was a smaller GT.
Yeah.
I do pretty well on appearance, and I always am surprised because the techniques I use.
Yeah, so am I.
Really simple. Yeah. The techniques I use are really simple, and it's just multiple layers of different colors of wash, and it's basically, you do 2 of green and 1 of yellow, and another 1 of green and 1 of brown, and then you're done with the model. And in the interim between each wash step, you add a little white or a little yellow here or there to bring out the wash. All right, on to the game. We rolled up our scenario. We rolled Battle 4, Blood and Glory. We're rolling all of our scenarios out of the 6 in the pitched battle section because, like I said before, we're trying to simulate a tournament, and we feel like right now that's the best we can do. I rolled up some spells, and actually I didn't roll up any spells. I had an easy choice again. I took Lore of Life on my level 2, and my horror block was level 3 this time. So I had Gift of Chaos, which I usually call the bubble spell, and I had Flickering Fire, which I usually call D6 plus 1s, and I also had Gift of Chaos. And I also had Bolt of Change, which I usually call the Big Nasty. So if you hear me say the Big Nasty later, I mean Bolt of Change, which is 2d6, d6 plus 4s, the magic missile. And I will just note real quick, this level 2 Herald of Tzeentch is actually a Malifaux Ice Gammon. I didn't convert it at all, I just put him on a rock and painted him up, but I like using alternate miniatures, especially when the GW model is lacking. When either GW hasn't put out a model in years and years, or the model they have is ugly.
Or it doesn't exist.
Yeah, or it doesn't exist.
For example.
Which, I mean, for this model, all 3 of those can be said. You can't order Tzeentch Herald anymore, and if you get your hands on one, he's ugly and he's old. Although there are cool armies that are completely made of old models. I do like that. I just don't think they mix well with the new models.
So for my level 2, I got Morkwantia and Brain Burster. So I got pretty good spells, so I was pretty happy with that.